Hello and welcome to the latest edition of our Talking City podcast with myself, Alex James, and Chief City writer Simon Bajkowski. As you can probably gather, we are not in the studio. We are battling scheduling commitments, and I'm in my spare bedroom, and Simon is at the CFA ahead of Pep Guardiola's press conference on Friday prior to the Sunderland game. So we will dive into that and look back at, we'll think of the adjective, shall we? Chaotic, perhaps best describes it, but we'll come up with a few adjectives for the midweek game at Fulham. Bonkers, balmy. But first, a quick word from our sponsors, NordVPN. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Talking City. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the podcast episode description box. Simon, did you have to have a lie down midweek then after that Craven Cottage expedition?
Do you know what? We were... it was a heated discussion after the game as to whether the game could be called a thriller or not. Someone was disputing it on the basis that it was 5-1 at one point rather than sort of the goals being shared equally between the teams. But I would say it was a thriller. And
I think if you can't call a 5-4 game a thriller,
especially with like O'Reilly nearly giving away a penalty, Guardiola clearing off the line. It had everything. The game. It was brilliant, and to say Pep barely uttered a word in his pre-match press conference, he seemingly couldn't get enough of it afterwards.
I saw he entered the press conference and kicked things off himself, didn't he? With a question to the waiting lead. It was always good. But yeah, I think it's definitely a thriller because I get the point of if it was 5-1 with 5 minutes to go and they scored 3 goals with no time at all, but it was 5-4 with 12, 13 minutes to go.
Yeah.
A long added on, wasn't there?
10 minutes added time. It was, I think it was 8 that were signalled, but then another 2 were played. It was, it was very much like the Leeds game, except it was Fulham who were chasing rather than City who were chasing. But very, very, very exciting and very difficult to try and make sense of any match pieces at the time, I would say.
Let's try and make sense of it now then, because a lot to like and then quite a bit to be concerned about, given it's the same pattern as you just said, same pattern that unfolded against Leeds, played out again. Great to see Phil Foden looking sharp. Tijani Reinders due that goal. Took it really, to say the least, I would say. Took it really well as well. So a lot to like going forward. And then how do we explain how they get themselves in a position where they're 4 goals to the good and look muddled? They just went very passive, didn't they? And Fulham sort of sensed it, scored 1, and then City weren't able to manage the game or weren't able to get a grip of the contest. How did you sort of see it from the press box?
Yeah, it just kind of all fell apart without really noticing, I would say. It was, I can't remember which game it was. Which game? I'm trying to think. Was it? It must have been Leeds. I think I did my match report on my match piece on Donnarumma for Leeds, was it? I can't remember. It was a game recently where he wasn't necessarily responsible for any of the goals, but he kind of set the tone for a nervy second half, and City kind of never recovered from it. And got absolutely hammered for it, like surprisingly hammered. And that's not to say that it was Donnarumma's fault this time, but again, it kind of felt like City just got themselves on like walking backwards on a treadmill, where just like nothing they can do. Because the rot had kind of started even before Nico Gonzalez came off, but when he did come off, John Stones came on and came into that kind of holding midfield role, and just everything went past him and through him, and it wasn't all his fault, but he couldn't do anything about it. And then he had to move back, and O'Reilly move into that position. It was just a very hectic ending. Guardiola said that City defended too deep. They were defending too deep in the box, which allowed a load of shots to go in from the edge of the box or whatever. I don't know whether it's sort of physical tiredness of the players' kind of energy levels dropping in the second half, but it does seem to be like where the City sides of old would kind of attack to defend their lead and keep the ball. City are giving the ball up more and not being as aggressive as they need to be to keep their opponents out.
Yeah, it was noticeable as well, wasn't it? I mean, I think Fulham had more possession in that game, which has happened a few times this season to City, and it was noticeable when I think Pep was talking about bringing on Cherky, that the reason he brought Cherky on was, who obviously is a very forward-thinking player, was to keep the ball, look after the ball, retain the ball, and play on the front foot a bit more, which kind of backs up what you were saying there as to how City would like to tackle scenarios.
Well, that was
Tuesday night.
Yeah. Like Cherky came on for Reinders, which feels like an attacking sub, but it was just to get someone to hold on to the ball because like everyone had stopped doing it. Kind of Bernardo Silva is there to do exactly that, and he just wasn't, and was just giving up opportunities. And Savinho, I mean, his decision making was something that leaves a lot to be desired. Just kind of like getting the ball on the edge of his own box, running forward with it to the halfway line, and then just running into a tackle, and it's straight back, coming back towards City's box again. Except Savinho's now tired because he's done that running, and Guardiola not great again. I know he kind of gets the plaudits for his last ditch clearance, but not really good across the course of the game. O'Reilly not great defensively. It just felt like the game sort of got away from City before they knew about it, and then they couldn't do anything to stop it.
What can they do to stop it then? Obviously, they've got a massive Ballon d'Or shaped Rodri hole, but that isn't an issue that is fresh for Tuesday night. That's an issue they've been dealing with for 12, 15 months now. And obviously, they've got Kovacic sidelined as well, who, for all his limitations, at least knows that position and probably would have been a useful player to have called upon on Tuesday. How can they stop taking the lead and then losing? I know they didn't lose the lead actually on Tuesday, did they? But they did at Leeds, and it's happened before. Like obviously, they were ahead at Brighton and lost. They were ahead at Arsenal, didn't win. Like there's a couple of examples where Monaco as well, I think, in the Champions League, where it's happened previously. Yeah. Maybe not quite a trend, but certainly a concern.
I think so. I think it is a trend. I think you can call it that. It's like they've been a lot better in the first half of games in terms of match situations than they have in the second half, and that's something that they need to address. How they address it, I don't know, because I don't know quite what the issues are. It feels like a physical thing, but then it also does feel quite mental and psychological, and also must be some kind of orders from the manager. I would be surprised if, a City team who's been pretty good at following Guardiola's orders this season and every other season, just decided that they're wholly incapable of doing it in the second half of each game this season. So there must be something in, whether it's kind of, I've seen some people saying like, without Edison, they've lost a bit of build-up. Now that's Donnarumma bashing again, but they've not quite got the ability to, or the confidence to have that extra man passing. That's something at the Leeds game, they kind of lost the extra man. Leeds sort of also changed shape in the second half, and you do have to accept that opponents change to.
I mean, Fulham made 2 subs at half time, I think, didn't they? That Brighton game obviously kind of pivoted
4
on
subs, I think.
4 subs, wasn't it? Yeah.
So you do have to accept the opponents, but I think it is enough of a City thing to for Pep to be asked about it today and things like that, because they have been a lot better at sort of being in control of games in the first half than they have in the second, and yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it feels like it's a massive issue. As in, I think it could be solved pretty quickly, but it's certainly one that will continue to give them issues until it is solved.
Yeah, it felt like they needed a tactical Donnarumma timeout at some point in that game.
Yes, yeah.
You mentioned Savinho a couple of minutes ago as well. Who there was a great picture after the game of Pep giving him an earful. Where
Yeah,
I did start to look up a couple of charities to see if I could call on Savinho's behalf for the abuse he was getting from his manager. But what what's the what's gone wrong here for Savinho to be coming off the bench? Well, A, not getting in the team because it did feel like he was in City's first choice 11 come the start of the season on the back of the Club World Cup, where I think he played more minutes than anybody else in a City shirt. Obviously, fluttered his eyelashes at Tottenham quite significantly. Then gets a new contract and has gone way off the boil in the since that Villarreal game, I would suggest, where he actually played quite well. But he looks like he's really struggling to impact games. And I know Oscar Bob is in a similar boat. If I'm Oscar Bob when I can't get in the squad, and then I'm looking at Savinho come on and just really struggle to make an impact. If anything, like you just said, make the impact the wrong way with decision making. It just seems like he's gone off the boil completely. I don't know.
yeah,
Your thoughts on that?
yeah. I mean, you talk about charities. I thought he was a very generous benefactor to Fulham's cause on Tuesday night. It was tough to watch him because like I say, just so many decisions that it felt like he took the wrong path, and it felt like a different path would have made the game safer for City. Now, he did put in a tremendous cross for Haaland, where Haaland hits the post, and if that goes in, it's probably game over. I think it would have been 6-2 at that point. And Haaland did miss another one in the first half, so you can say, oh, maybe Haaland should be doing better. So it's not like City struggled just cause Savinho. But yeah, for the amount of time he was on the pitch, he offered alarmingly little in kind of talking about net positives or whatever. It was largely negative because so many of his kind of actions ended up with Fulham winning the ball back and sometimes in an even better position. So it just didn't work out, and it hasn't worked out for, like you say, pretty much since the Villarreal game. And yeah, he has to sort of, Pep has to leave somebody out of the squad, and it's been Oscar Bob quite a few times. It's been Rico Lewis, it's been Kusanov. You wonder whether, Savinho's time is coming.
Yeah. Confidence thing or mindset thing in terms of, I don't know, this is probably speaking out of turn, but I've just signed a big new deal. I'm secure at my future, secure at City for off the gas, or just a bad spell, or a bit of everything.
Yeah, I don't know. You don't want to speculate, but we are in the game, so let's do it anyway. But I just think, regardless of what it is, I think there's less sympathy for him because of the way he fluttered his eyes at Tottenham. He played for City at Palermo in there. That was a week before the season started, and then like a day later, he suddenly developed this injury that puts him out for basically the entire transfer window, conveniently enough, while he's sticking pictures on social media that aren't necessarily...
Yeah, he didn't help himself there, did he?
No, and you just wonder, like, if part of you starts to consider a move away or not playing for the team anymore, is it harder for you to get back in? It definitely is harder to get back in after injury, but he did show at Villarreal that he can produce a top performance, but it's just, I think his mentality is a lot of that consistency, and I think that is something that you're seeing from, say, Foden at the minute, who is just determined to be the man every time. And sort of similar, if not quite to the same extent, Haaland and Jeremy Doku, in that both of those are looking to impact the game at every opportunity they get, but they're also it's kind of a controlled intent where they're making sure that they make the right decisions. Whereas Savinho too often seems to be like, well, let me get the ball and dribble past 30 people in order to score the goal to show how good I am. And like, I don't think he's ever scored a goal that way, but it's a surefire way to lose possession and ensure that when your team has won a game, the first thing the manager does is come on the pitch and give you a rollicking.
Yeah, and Doku is because Savinho played a lot last year, but he was inconsistent last year. He seems to have got more inconsistent, whereas Doku has got more. I mean, he was in and out last year, and he was a bit inconsistent at times, and he has got more consistent. And I suppose that magnifies the gap between two players who are maybe quite similar in how they frustrated and delighted. One's gone one way and one's gone the other.
Now, Savinho is still very young, as was Doku, so he has got room to grow. The comparison I would make with Savinho is Gabriel Jesus, who on his game was unbelievable for City. Started off like a house on fire, and then kind of pressure and expectation came, and he struggled with it. And he was a real confidence player, and he struggled when he was out of form to kind of get back in. I think he said he had a long goal drought once, and he then broke it. I think he got a hat-trick away at Dynamo Zagreb, and he said something like, I wanted to shoot myself when I wasn't scoring. And great quote, but quite dramatic. And after a while, Pep was kind of like, I've not got time for this guy to be so up and down. I just need players who are going to be consistent. And so it's that for me with Savinho. Like, he might not be in the best rhythm or form or headspace, but he needs to find a consistency that will get him picked because everyone else is showing that. And it's kind of the same for Oscar Bob. But yeah, Savinho feels like he's on a level with Bob at the minute in that they're not showing enough to warrant being picked.
It feels mad that we've got, 15 minutes into this podcast, and we haven't mentioned Erling Haaland breaking the fastest, or being the fastest to 100 Premier League goals, and significantly bettering Alan Shearer's game ratio in that. I guess that just kind of sums up how he is making the extraordinary normal, and he continues to do it.
Yeah, I think it does because you expect it. You come away from that game and you say, well, he could have had 3. But he will come away from that game and think, I could have had 3. But it kind of does show, you mentioned at the start of the podcast a lot of positives from Tuesday night, and you had Haaland's 100th goal and the form that he's in this season. You had Foden with his 2 goals and, the drive that he is adding to City's team, and like they can't rely on Haaland all the time. Foden looks like a very good second man if you're going to rely on people.
Yeah.
But by the end, when you've conceded 3 goals in 20 minutes or whatever it was, and you're hanging on for dear life at the end, that is the story that people will go away with and focus on. Because Haaland's goal nearly wasn't enough for City to win the game in which they scored 5, and that is kind of even more remarkable maybe than Haaland's 100 goals in the short term. But obviously in the long term, that is a record that Haaland will dearly cherish, and his eyes will firmly be on Alan Shearer.
Yeah, on the 260, I think, isn't it, or 260, something like that. Which, yeah, given he signed a 9-year contract, feels absolutely inevitable.
Yeah. I mean, nobody expects him to break Shearer's record because they didn't expect him to stay for as long as he has. But if he sees out that contract, something alarming would have to happen for him not to break it.
And then we move from chaotic 5-4, which then Aston Villa and Brighton tried to outdo, failed, but tried to outdo on Wednesday. And another, I realise every weekend is crucial, but City playing Sunderland, Arsenal are at Villa, 4 of the top 6 playing each other, Arsenal playing early, having played a day later than City in midweek. City back at the Etihad. It just feels like it's going to be like this between now and May, or between now and either Arsenal going 10, 12 points clear and it kind of been done and dusted, a bit like what happened with Liverpool last season.
Yeah, and Arsenal, with a few more injuries as well, going to an Aston Villa team who are in incredible form and third in the league now. They could be 8 points ahead of City by the time the City kick off. They could be 6 points, they could be 5. And that will...
Nothing wrong with your site.
No, but City players will know that when they kick off, and they will feel it, whether they want to be influenced by it or not. They will be, and they're playing a Sunderland side who have defied all expectations this season, and we've just seen have gone to Liverpool and shown no fear. I dare say no respect for Anfield, and just turned up and said, "Yeah, we don't care what you've done in the past. We're just going to turn up and beat the disorganised side that you are at the minute." Ending up with a draw, but they nearly snatched a winner at the end. So really good and really difficult to beat, and it isn't quite the home banker that it maybe would have looked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I think Sunderland have lost fewer games than City this season so far in the league. And I do fancy Villa. I must admit, I do think Villa might get whether they beat Arsenal or not. But I think Arsenal, obviously, they've lost one game, which was Liverpool, and they've drawn 3, I think, which was City, Chelsea, and somebody else, Sunderland. So their record, the games they've dropped points in are against teams towards the top end of the league. They do still feel like that team that will brush aside 8th to 20th and take a point if they want it, if they can rather, at the top end team. So I do think there's a big chance for City to close that gap, notwithstanding how impressive Sunderland have been, how difficult it is to read City at the moment, because even when they're 5-1 up, it turns out you can't be too secure in your thinking.
Yeah. And like you say, it is just the nature of kind of we're in the meat and drink of the title race, where everyone looks to each other's results, and like you say, Arsenal do seem to be very strong, and it was strong in midweek for them to be able to rest so many players against Brentford and still win the game. But at the same time, they will have felt City, and I saw a lot of people say, "Oh well, City conceded 4 against Fulham. Arsenal would never do that." And you're like, yeah, that's right, but like City are never going to have as good a defence as Arsenal this season. But that doesn't mean that they can't keep up with them and beat them in other ways.
Yeah.
You don't need to have the best defensive record to win the league. You probably need. Well, it helps, and the team with the best defensive record probably wins the league more often than not. But there's one thing that Guardiola's sides have shown over the years: it's that they can win the league in all manner of ways. So I think they will be quite happy to be where they are, despite the performance in midweek.
Yeah, one final one. Obviously, Real Madrid looming on the horizon in a game that probably has a little bit more on it than it would have if City had done the job against Leverkusen. How do we think Guardiola will tackle selection on Saturday, given what we said about Sunderland? You can't really take any chances. We saw, I'm not suggesting he's going to make another 10 changes, because he said he won't do that ever again, but we saw what happened when he made significant changes against Leverkusen. It doesn't feel like there's going to be 4 or 5 changes, but on the other hand, there was a little bit of physical tiredness in that game. Nico Gonzalez can't go to the well every single week for every 3 days until Rodri manages to get back to full fitness. So how do you sort of see the selection thinking from City?
I think Real is the third most important game in the 3 they've got coming up. I think Sunderland at home and Palace away next weekend are both a lot more important than Real Madrid away. Madrid away, yeah, if they lose, is not the end of the world. If they get a point, amazing. If they get 3 points, unbelievable. But it doesn't really matter, I don't think, in the course of their Champions League initial phase. Having got the result they had against Leverkusen, that has kind of set its own course. There's no point trying to sort of undo Leverkusen by going all out to beat Madrid. Like, win against Bodo, win against Galatasaray, and you might get top 8, you might not. Helped if you can get anything against Madrid, but I just think with the way it is with Arsenal at 5 points, I think it's more important that City finish this spell before Christmas. Tricky game against Sunderland, tricky game at Palace, West Ham, final game before Christmas. I think if they can get 9 points from those 3, I don't think they will care what happens against Real Madrid as long as there are no injuries.
Interesting. So you're writing off. That's why you're not going, is it? Because it's a game that doesn't matter as.
Yeah, exactly. I only do the ones that matter. Yeah.
We will be back on early next week, possibly Tuesday, I think, with our podcast next week, as opposed to the usual Monday offering, where we will be looking ahead to Madrid and reflecting on events that unfold on Saturday. So we will leave Si to get his free lunch and go and speak to Mr. Guardiola. And thanks for watching as ever. Thanks for listening, and we shall see you all next time.